All right, the Pete Souza Show. There he is, the voice of the Jayhawks, Brian Hanni. Brian, man, thank you so much for taking the time.
Of course, Pete. Thanks for the invitation. Great to be with you.
Dude, great to be with you, too. For my money, no lie, I told Scotty this, our producer, before the show started. I was like, for my money, best Big 12 play-by-play guy, Brian Hanni. Yeah, and I've told you that before in person. I love your work. You got Kevin Harlan out of Texas, and then you got Brian Hanni right there. But you do a tremendous job. So I'm pumped to talk to you.
You know, Kevin's actually a KU grad. He's kind of the gold standard around here. And so one of my mentors, that's high praise, my friend. We both had the same play-by-play coach back in the day, Tom Hedrick, who called the first Super Bowl. So that's a KU claim to fame between Kevin and I. But thank you, Pete. That means the world. Oh,
dude. Again, I really appreciate you taking the time. And it looks like now, where are you right now? Are you in the illustrious like facilities now over there in Lawrence? Where are you?
I'm in one of the team film rooms, and this is a room that existed prior to the $448 million phase one. But I wanted to get to a quiet place for the conversation. I wish I could take you around and show you everything in the background, but they're practicing as we speak.
I'm looking forward to getting there and seeing it myself. But, you know, the brand new stadium, not brand new, reimagined, right? David Booth Memorial. What has been the reaction? I know last night, I think the first edition of Hawk Talk with Lance Leipold was taped either last night or the night before. You can fill me in on that. But what is Coach Leipold's reaction when he sees this, right? And he starts to understand, wow, this is a reality now. We're not talking about it anymore.
Yeah. Well, first off, I think to speak from the perspective of a Kansas lifer, I'm 45 years old. I knew nothing but the previous David Booth Kansas Memorial Stadium, a place that was 104 years old. And this is kind of surreal to step foot in it now. And yes, reimagined, transformed, those are the right terms, but it will eventually be brand new once phase two is completed. Right now you have the west side, the north side, the Anderson Family Football Complex has all been completely redone. And then in phase two, the east side, an entertainment district, hotel, additional parking, all that. So right now we use the terms like you used with the transformed and reimagined, but eventually brand new. And this place, state of the art, absolutely incredible. For me as a lifer, it's surreal to think, wow, we have something this nice at Kansas, a stadium that matches the same trajectory that Lance Leipold has this program on. I think to answer your question about Lance, when he steps foot and he looks around, he thinks, you know what? This Travis Goff guy that hired me, he's making good on his promises. Because think about it, this is year 5 we're starting up. And in the first 4 years, Leipold's delivered 2 bowl appearances, nearly a third, which would have been the first time in program history to go to back-to-back-to-back bowl games. They came up just 1 win shy of that a year ago. So Leipold has certainly held up his end of the bargain. His on-field success is what's gotten the donors on board to fund projects like this. But as the head coach, he's got to feel like, man, I've got the support of my chancellor and my AD, everything they promised and then some right now, they're making good on. And we've got this brick and mortar tangible proof of how serious the University of Kansas is taking football.
Hey, Brian, that is a really good point you make. And just like, let me kind of follow up on that. You know, you mentioned Lance Leipold kind of instills confidence in these donors to make something like this happen because it was, you know, you mentioned the early success, right, in his tenure. I mean, how far does that go?
And, absolutely. I think the fan base and the donor base really got on board in year 1 when they went down to Austin, Texas, and took down the Longhorns. You know, a huge win for Kansas, generational victory to win down there in Austin. They realized at that point, okay, this guy has something special brewing. But then the following season to go to a bowl game for the first time since the Mark Mangino era, you know, at that point we hadn't been bowling in 14 years. And then to back it up with a second consecutive bowl appearance the following year and really feel like you had a full head of steam, you realized, okay, now we clearly made the right hire at coach. We clearly have a groundswell of momentum with player recruitment, player development, all that. We got to keep this guy first and foremost, and then we need to surround him with the type of facilities and also, you know, in the NIL era, the funds and resources to keep these players coming, and that's exactly what the donor base has been able to do with Travis Goff's leadership and then Lance Leipold's tangible success on the field. And I'll tell you what, the culture here is truly next level. And I've worked at multiple schools. I've worked for multiple KU football coaches. That's well documented. documented the culture that Lance Leipold and then Matt Gildersleeve, who, yes, he's the strength and conditioning coach by title, but he's so much more than that. He's a culture coach. It's just been amazing to see the buy-in of these guys. And it started day one, year one, when they put up an 80-inch flat screen right in front of the locker room that charted the first 5 guys into the practice facility and the last 5 guys. And the first on the field, last to leave the field. And that's something small, but it set the tone for what's expected of these guys. And when you look at some of the GPS tracking they do on player explosiveness, player effort, improved speed, all that, the individual athletic body gains that these guys have made is simply remarkable. But it starts with that mindset that Leipold and Gildersleeve have instilled in these guys. And it's really a contagious, infectious culture that you want to be a part of. And what's neat is in this era of so many transfers, you get guys coming in from other Big 12 programs or other major conference programs, and they're blown away, not just with how nice these $450 million facilities are, but the level of expectation, the level of buy-in, the level of want to that every man is held to that walks through those doors. And you may not have expected that at Kansas based on how the previous decade went, but that's certainly the expectation and the culture now.
I love it, dude. And I love the accountability. And I love also, you can make it happen at Kansas. Glenn Mason did it. Mark Mangino did it, and now we see Coach Leipold doing it. By the way, I have to tell this story. So when I was my entree into play-by-play, I did play-by-play in like the NBA D-League, right? But I also did spotting for a while. So that Saturday night in Austin, I was working for Roy Philpott. I was spotting for him. And it's late in the game, and I see this freaking 46 keeps appearing on the field. I'm pretty sure it was 46. And I'm looking at the board, and I don't like to go right. As you know, as a play-by-play guy, you don't like the spotter just writing stuff on your board. I mean, I'm kind of laid back. I don't care. But some guys, I've done it before, and guys get pissed, as a spotter. I don't spot anymore. I used to, but I know what a good spotter looks like, and it's a big deal. So anyways, I don't want to overstep, but I'm like, screw it, dude. Like, this is down the stretch now. So, and you can tell me the guy's name. 46, I write on Roy's board. 46 is?
Jared Casey.
So I write Jared Casey, and wouldn't you know, it was a 2-point conversion, right?
Maybe the biggest catch in Kansas history. You hate to say that for a regular season game, but again, that was the monumental upset.
Yeah.
Belief in the buy-in factor across the board. I think he was wearing 47 at the time.
Yeah,
not to correct. I'm amazed at your memory, as many teams as you cover and games as you work, that you could recall that from 4 years ago. But the mighty Casey, as we called him, had the most momentous catch, arguably in KU football history, on a 2-point conversion to win by 1 in a high 50s overtime shootout in Austin.
Yes. I was like, hey, Brian, I was so pumped. I was like, that's the guy I wrote down. And Roy, if you ever bump into Roy, it's one of his favorite stories. I've heard him tell it on, Sirius Radio. It was, and it's kind of, I've been doing it for long enough. You kind of figure out the rhythms, right? But I've certainly screwed up too when I was spotting. But let's get back to Kansas. I want to talk about the team. 5-7 last year, right? Preseason top 25, 22nd in the country. Jalen Daniels was preseason Big 12 Player of the Year. Clearly, it's there for the Jayhawks, right? What is the expectation this year on the field for this team?
I think it's still very high, despite a year that obviously came up short of what we were all hoping. I think a big part of that was Daniels, you might recall, had missed about 75% of the previous season. You had a new offensive coordinator a year ago. And over the first half of the year, it just took a while to settle in. And Kansas had some speed bumps along the way and a couple of losses they didn't expect to have, including UNLV at home. They were in position to win at Illinois, lost that one. Next thing you know, they get to the midway point of the season, and they're not at all where they thought they would be. And it was really gut check time for Kansas. What they were able to do down the stretch, though, was so impressive, with 3 consecutive top 25 upsets, including knocking off a previously undefeated BYU team on a late Saturday night in Provo. So that was huge. And as I said, they came up 1 win shy of a 3rd consecutive season of being bowl eligible. But it showed us that the team we thought they could be throughout the season was still in there. They just stumbled out the gates. This year, with Daniel Daniels having, without a doubt, the greatest offseason, most dialed in, locked in, striving for excellence offseason he's ever had, I think you should expect a much faster start out of Kansas, not only because of his mindset, but his OC this year is the quarterback's coach he's had for the last 5 years, Jim Zabrowski. The rapport, the chemistry, the trust between those two is as good and long tenured and seasoned as any OC to QB relationship could possibly be. That can't help but make for an ideal and optimal start for Jalen Daniels. And then you add in, I think, the best vertical downfield threat he's had in his entire collegiate career in Emmanuel Henderson from Alabama. This kid can flat out fly. They're clocking him at 23 miles an hour, and I don't know what that means, but as a play-by-play guy, it means he's going to get open deep downfield. 50-yard touchdowns that we're excited to call. Yes, he lost some of his most trusted targets, and you saw two of them make highlights on Saturday night in the NFL with Luke Grimm on a 66-yard punt return for the Chargers and Quentin Skinner with an unbelievable juggling catch for the Jets. Tough to replace those guys, but I think they've got just as much, if not more, speed and some tried and true hands as well, with other transfers like Cam Pickett, Levi Wentz mixing in as well. So it's still a very talented group. Devin Neal's now with the New Orleans Saints, the most decorated running back this side of Gale Sayers in KU football history. And yet they brought in LeSean Williams from Iowa. And this is Daniel Highshaw's fifth-year senior year, a chance to really break out. So I think the offense is in good hands. I really do, even with two offensive linemen off to the NFL as well. Defensively, we saw DK McDonald get the promotion to DC after Brian Borland retired. And let me tell you, they've got some high-impact, immediate dividends paid type additions on this defense. Justice Finkley up front from Texas already has been voted a captain. He's been here for a handful of months, and he's got the C on his chest. What's that tell you? Bengali Kamara in the linebacking core, I think, will be an all Big 12 linebacker. And then Leroy Harris is a guy that every coach from Leipold all the way through all the defensive coaches have singled out on the defensive line at defensive end, a transfer from Chattanooga. His dad played 7 years in the NFL. He's still kind of finding his body and growing into who he's going to be now with Matt Gildersleeve getting the most out of him physically. But this guy has a chance to be an absolute beast. So I think you're going to see Kansas with more pressure off the edge than we've seen in any season since Mangino's Orange Bowl campaign in 07-08. I think there are concerns, obviously, when you lose Kobe Bryant and Mello Dotson in the secondary, but they've got some guys in Alexander and really a complement of players back there that are redshirt freshmen or sophomores that they've had grown up through the system. Jalen Todd being another that was a 4-star recruit that I think make you just as talented, just not as experienced, but give them every bit a chance to be every bit as good as those previous two guys I mentioned. So a lot of excitement really in all three phases. And obviously the fan expectations are right back where they were this time a year ago, even though last season didn't quite finish up as high as we thought it would.
Great intel. A couple more questions before we let you out of here. You mentioned, well, first of all, the schedule, I think, sets up pretty well for Kansas. I mean, you've got Texas Tech at home. You have Utah at home. Obviously, the Missouri date early, right? That's very exciting, especially in that neck of the woods. But the stadium in itself, last year, it was almost transient, right? Like you played at Arrowhead sometimes. I guess it was maybe where the soccer stadium?
Children's Mercy Park, MLS.
Yeah, and so was that, I mean, clearly it's about accountability at Kansas. Like, they're not going to make any excuses. Coach Leipold's not making any excuses. But for me, it's understandable that may have affected the team a little bit last year early on when you're struggling, as opposed to this year now where you have a real strong foothold in one of the most beautiful facilities in the country.
Yeah, I love the way you phrase that because nobody around here is going to use that as an excuse. But yes, was that a factor to some degree? Absolutely. It's not a quantifiable thing where I can tell you, oh, that cost us 1.5 wins. But yeah, does the UNLV game early in the season maybe go the other way if you have the comfy confines and familiarity of your normal routine, your normal home field, all that? Tough to say. But I think at some point along the way that there was, an inconvenience and a out of normal routine factor that probably contributed to maybe one fewer win, but they're not going to sit here and look in the rearview mirror. They're going to look to the future. But I think it's a great question to ask, because now that you are home and you've got this state-of-the-art facility and the best locker rooms these kids have ever seen in their lives, and you're not busing into Kansas City for your home games and all these things, it does give you more rhythm, routine, and continuity and consistency that I think helps this club. So great question, very apropos, and that's one of those that Lance would never ever make an excuse of, but it's certainly in the back of his mind, and I think it was a real factor.
Okay, you've got Jayhawk in your DNA, right? And this is your 10th season calling these games. What are you, and this is the last question, what are you most excited for as far as this season is concerned?
Well, I think opening night, obviously coming up 5:30 on Saturday versus Fresno State, just to see the booth packed, more than 40,000 strong, to see the players come running out that tunnel, to see what we think is one of the most beautiful backdrops in all of collegiate athletics when it talks about the University of Kansas campus, but then to hear that crowd roar in a venue now that will actually trap in the sound and it'll reverberate back down onto the field. And they were testing out the speakers the other day, and you could hear it 5 blocks away,
like a sonic boom.
I think the atmosphere and the energy is going to be electric, and I think our guys are going to feed off of that. And so, yeah, I could answer that question, Pete, by saying week 3 versus Mizzou. That's what a real Jayhawk would say that knows the history. I could say maybe it's our chance to beat K-State for the first time in a decade and a half. We get them at home this year. We've come so close the last couple of years. All these things down the line certainly could trump the feeling on opening night. But when you've got a stadium that was so many decades in the making, and there were previous ADs that tried to get this done and couldn't because the team's success on the field waned and the dollars went away, now it all came together. The perfect symmetry and alignment of Chancellor, AD, and coach and on-field success. I think the culmination of all of that and what we expect the energy and atmosphere to be like on Saturday night, that's a night I'll remember for the rest of my life, rest of my career, all that. So opening night's going to be special. But here's hoping it's a year that not only breaks in the new stadium with some amazing home wins, but you have a chance to beat both your rivals, get back in the bowl picture, and keep that upward ascension heading the way it is. Because let me tell you, not just with this new stadium, but with a $300 million pledge from David Booth, what many believe could be the greatest gift in college athletics history, Kansas football is not just making a splash in the water. They're building the type of continuity and consistency in coaching, in player development, in resources to keep this thing trending upward for the indefinite future. And that's obviously really, really exciting. We've had that for 100 years in hoops. It'd be great to get that kind of continuity in football as well.
Looking forward to seeing how high the Jayhawks can fly this year. Brian Hanni, thank you so much. We will come on. We got to talk later in the year, right? I appreciate it. This is great. Yeah.
Absolutely, Pete. Thanks so much for having me on. Always a pleasure.
You got it, buddy. Good luck on Saturday, man. Rock chalk, brother.
Rock chalk. Thanks a lot.